iconic action scene is a moment that almost killed the movie itself. Some of these films were never meant to be made. They were rejected by studios, laughed out of pitch rooms, stalled by funding, crippled by casting controversies, or simply buried in distribution hell. They were too weird, too risky, or just too broken to ever see the light of day. And yet, they survived. Through accidents, defiance, or pure cinematic stubbornness, these films clawed their way into existence. Often misunderstood at first, many of them have since become legends, rewriting the rules of action cinema, even as they nearly collapsed before reaching the screen. Imagine a film that was shot with no permits in a foreign country, or a script so strange no studio wanted it until a washed-up actor took a chance. What if the next great franchise was born from a flop no one even planned to release? These are not your typical blockbusters. They are orphans of the industry, bastard projects born from chaos and kept alive by obsession. And still, they exploded. Let's step behind the curtain, past the stunts and the smoke. Here are 15 legendary action movies that were never supposed to exist yet changed everything. Fact 1. John Wick, 2014. The $20 million DVD that changed everything. It began as a straight-to-video action flick. No major expectations, no franchise dreams. Just another low-budget revenge story with a worn-out lead and a script that had been floating around Hollywood purgatory for years. Keanu Reeves was long past his Matrix prime. The directors, Chad Stahelski and David Leitch, had never directed a feature, and the title Scorn didn't exactly scream box office gold. When Reeves signed on, the script changed. He suggested the character be renamed John Wick, as a tribute to a friend. He gave the film gravity, but even then, the budget stayed modest. No studio believed a silent, grieving hitman would draw crowds in an age of CGI spectacle. Then something happened. The action was different. Brutal, intimate, elegant. Gun-fu mixed with judo in long, unbroken takes. The world-building assassins with gold coins and hotel codes hinted at a mythology no one expected. When it premiered, it didn't explode. It simmered. Critics leaned in. Audiences whispered. The film became a phenomenon not because of hype, but because everyone thought it had no right being that good. Ironically, John Wick was nearly shelved. It was marketed like a VOD release, but it made over $80 million and launched a billion-dollar franchise. All from a film no one took seriously. A film that was never supposed to exist. Fact 2. The Raid, 2011. Shot in the shadows. Released by force. It wasn't supposed to go international. The Raid was a low-budget Indonesian action film, shot in a rundown apartment block in Jakarta with a cast of unknown martial artists and a Welsh director, Gareth Evans, who barely spoke the local language. The budget? Around $1.1 million. The plan? Direct-to-DVD in Southeast Asia. There was no strategy for international distribution, no English dub, no US release. What they had, however, was lightning in a bottle. Evans captured violence like a conductor scoring symphonies of chaos. Star Iko Uwais delivered silat martial arts in scenes so raw and precise, they made Hollywood choreography look like slow-motion ballet. Someone leaked the film to a festival contact. The Raid premiered at Toronto and exploded. Audiences roared. Critics compared it to Die Hard, Hard Boiled, even Old Boy. Sony Pictures picked it up. US distribution followed. An American remake was immediately greenlit. Sequels, video games, and countless rip-offs emerged. And yet, it was never meant to leave Indonesia. Behind the blood and bone-breaking brilliance was a project so obscure it almost vanished. A film that went global not by design but by sheer, undeniable force. Fact 3. Die Hart, 1988. The wrong actor in the right movie. Bruce Willis was a sitcom star. That's all he was. When he was cast as John McClane in Die Hard, the world laughed literally. The studio even reduced his face on early posters, afraid his image would sink the film. Action heroes in the 80 seconds were mountains of muscle. Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Van Damme. Willis? He was the guy from Moonlighting. A wisecracking romantic, not a gun-toting hero. The script had been passed around for years. It was technically a sequel to a forgotten Frank Sinatra movie. Dozens of actors turned it down, including Clint Eastwood and Burt Reynolds. The shoot was a mess. Willis was doing double duty filming his sitcom. The budget ballooned. Reshoots plagued the production. Studio execs prepared for a flop. But then the film came out and McClane bled. He limped. He screamed. He panicked. He wasn't a Superman. He was human. And audiences loved him for it. Bruce Willis became a star overnight. Die Hard redefined the modern action film, not with brawn, but with grit and vulnerability. It invented a new archetype, the everyday man pushed to impossible limits. And the irony? The only reason Willis got the role was because no one else wanted it. Fact 4. Mad Max 1979. A film made on fumes. It started with a doctor. George Miller wasn't a filmmaker, he was an emergency room physician. He'd seen the aftermath of motorcycle crashes, car pileups, and bodies torn by momentum. He wanted to capture that chaos on screen. The budget? Just $350,000. The crew? Mostly friends. The lead actor, Mel Gibson, came to the audition with a busted face from a bar fight. The roads weren't closed. Stunts were real. The production stole time and space wherever it could. They shot in rural Australia, out of sequence, with no permits for most scenes. One cameraman clung to a motorcycle's back seat to film chases. The actors wore their own clothes. Studios ignored it. Critics shrugged. But then the box office numbers came in. Mad Max made over $100 million worldwide. It became the most profitable film per dollar at the time. Audiences were mesmerized by the speed, the silence, the terror. It was punk, post-apocalyptic, and completely unfiltered. Ironically, many of the crew didn't return for the sequel. They thought the first was a lucky accident, but that accident created a franchise, launched Gibson's career, and changed how the world saw Australia, turning a no-budget road film into a genre blueprint. And it all began with a doctor and a dream on empty road. Fact 5. The Terminator 1984. Nobody wanted to buy it until he sold his blood. James Cameron had a nightmare, a metallic skeleton dragging itself out of fire. That image became the seed of the Terminator, but no one cared. Studios laughed at his pitch. No name director, no stars, no chance. Cameron sold the script to producer Gail Ann Hurd for $1 on one condition: he would direct it. With no real money, Cameron funded early concept work out of pocket. He borrowed camera gear. He did sketches himself. He rewrote scenes constantly. At one point, he sold his own blood to afford rent. Then Arnold Schwarzenegger came in not as the hero, but as the villain, a terrifying slab of muscle with 10 lines of dialogue, a killer machine that didn't blink. The film was delayed for months, so Arnold could shoot Conan the Destroyer. Cameron used that time to refine every detail, from the score to the storyboards. The budget was still tight. Production was brutal. When The Terminator hit theaters, it didn't dominate right away, but word spread. The tone, the tension, the sheer inevitability of the machine. It made $78 million off a $6 million budget and turned Cameron into a force. Today, it's a classic. But back then, it was just a weird sci-fi slasher no one wanted, and its creator was bleeding to keep it alive. Fact 6. Rambo. First Blood 1982. The cut that almost killed Stallone's career. Before Rambo became a cultural icon, he was an embarrassment. First Blood was based on a gritty novel about a Vietnam vet turned fugitive. The script went through 26 rewrites. Multiple directors bailed. Then Sylvester Stallone signed on hot off Rocky, but desperate to prove range. Production was rough. The Canadian wilderness was unforgiving. Injuries were frequent. But the real disaster came in post. The first cut ran over 3 hours. Test audiences hated it. Stallone himself called it unwatchable and tried to buy the film just to destroy it. But instead of quitting, he cut. Stallone worked with editors to slash the film in half, removing entire subplots, streamlining the narrative, and transforming Rambo from a deranged killer into a sympathetic warrior. The result shocked everyone. First Blood became a hit. It grossed over $125 million worldwide and launched a franchise that would span decades. Rambo's tearful breakdown at the end, unscripted, became one of Stallone's most human moments on screen. But the irony? Had the original version been released, it might have ended Stallone's career. Instead, a film on the verge of collapse became a defining chapter in action cinema. Fact 7. Edge of Tomorrow 2014. The sci-fi hit that nobody understood. Tom Cruise, aliens, time loops, explosions. On paper, Edge of Tomorrow should have been a blockbuster, but Warner Brothers had no idea how to market it. The original title, All You Need Is Kill, tested poorly. The plot was complex. The tone wavered between satire and survival. Marketing pivoted too late. Posters emphasized the armor, not the concept. The trailers were vague. Audiences thought it was just another generic alien war flick. On release weekend, it underperformed badly. But then something strange happened. People who did see it loved it. Cruise's character wasn't a hero, he was a coward, forced to die again and again. Emily Blunt stole scenes as the Angel of Verdun. The action was sharp, the editing precise, and the time loop twist? Addictive. Slowly, the film found life not in theaters, but on demand. Word of mouth turned a box office disappointment into a cult phenomenon. Ironically, Warner Brothers later rebranded the home release with a bold font subtitle, Live, Die, Repeat. Many mistook it for the real title. What was supposed to be a misfire became one of the smartest action films of the decade, resurrected by repetition, just like its hero, a box office casualty, reborn in the rewind. Fact 8. Speed. 1994. The elevator pitch that almost didn't make it out of the basement. A bomb on a bus. If it drops below 50 miles per hour, it explodes. That's it. That's the pitch. When screenwriter Graham Yost first wrote Speed, studios laughed. The premise sounded absurd. One executive asked, "So the whole movie is on the bus?" It sat in development hell for years. When it was greenlit, no A-list actor wanted it. Keanu Reeves was considered a gamble. Sandra Bullock was still unknown. Director John DeBont had never helmed a feature. He was best known as a cinematographer for Die Hard. The production was plagued by rewrites. Joss Whedon secretly polished the dialogue. The bus sequences were shot on freeways under real traffic. One bus did explode prematurely, forcing days of rescheduling. Fox barely marketed it. Expectations were minimal. Then came the premiere. Audiences were gripped. The tension was relentless. The concept once ridiculed became iconic. Reeves' stoic charm, Bullock's relatable panic, and the sheer momentum turned Speed into a surprise smash. It grossed over $350 million globally. Critics called it the best action movie in a decade. The punchline? A film that was nearly dropped for being too stupid became a masterclass in sustained tension. Fact 9. The Matrix. 1999. The film that nobody at Warner Brothers understood. When the Wachowskis pitched The Matrix, they brought storyboards 600 pages worth. Why? Because nobody could understand the script. A hacker discovers reality is a simulation? Machines farm humans for energy? Bullet time? The studio executives didn't get it at all. The Wachowskis had only directed one indie crime thriller. The studio offered a tiny budget around $10 million. Instead of fighting it, they made a test. The rooftop chase, the wall flip, the gunplay. Executives were stunned. The budget was raised but still capped under what similar action films received. Filming was brutal. Keanu Reeves trained with martial arts legend Yuen Woo-ping despite a neck injury. Carrie-Anne Moss sprained her ankle early on. Visual effects teams invented new tech just to achieve the now famous bullet time shots. When The Matrix opened, it wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural detonation. It redefined what sci-fi action could be. Its style, philosophy, and choreography rewired the genre, and yet it came terrifyingly close to being shelved for being too weird. Sometimes, the only way to explain the future is to show it frame by frame. Fact 10. Predator 1987. The alien that didn't exist until they rewrote it mid-shoot. It started as a joke. After Rocky IV, someone joked that the only opponent left for Stallone would be an alien. That joke turned into a script, Hunter, a generic sci-fi thriller where a soldier fights a space creature in the jungle. 20th Century Fox bought it. Arnold Schwarzenegger signed on. But the original alien suit, red, insect-like, cheap, was a disaster. Filming started in Mexico, and halfway through, the production shut down. The alien just didn't work. Producers panicked. Budget was bleeding. Arnold was furious. The crew flew back to LA, not knowing if the movie would resume. Then came Stan Winston. The legendary creature designer, fresh off Aliens, rebuilt the alien from scratch. The new version, with mandibles, dreadlocks, and infrared vision, changed everything. Jean-Claude Van Damme had been in the original suit. He was replaced. Filming resumed. The tone shifted. The story restructured to highlight suspense, not just action. When Predator premiered, it wasn't a guaranteed hit. Critics were mixed, but word of mouth spread. The jungle tension, the brutal kills, and that final one-on-one fight made it unforgettable. A movie that began as a parody evolved into one of the most iconic creature features in history. And the original alien? Buried in a storage vault where it belonged. Fact 11. Taka 2008. The French B-movie that accidentally turned Liam Neeson into an action star. Liam Neeson wasn't supposed to be an action hero. He was a serious actor. Schindler's List, Michael Collins, Kinsey. By 2008, he was doing dramatic roles and the occasional mentor character. Taken was a small French production by Luc Besson's EuropaCorp. A tight-budget revenge thriller meant mostly for European audiences. Neeson took the job thinking it would go straight to video. Filmed quickly in Paris, the movie had no major marketing push. Neeson performed his own stunts. The tone was hard-edged, almost mean. The American release came months later without hype. But then, the phone call scene went viral. "I will look for you, I will find you, and I will kill you." Audiences were stunned. Neeson's quiet menace, the brutal fight choreography, the ticking clock pacing it hit like a hammer. Taken made over $225 million. It rewired Neeson's entire career. Suddenly, the 5-6-year-old was headlining shoot-'em-ups and international thrillers. Studios scrambled to build new action vehicles around him. The irony? He thought no one would see it, that it would disappear in foreign DVD bins. Instead, it resurrected a genre and created a reluctant action icon. Fact 12. District 9 2009. The failure of a blockbuster that birthed a masterpiece. Neil Blomkamp was supposed to direct Halo, the film adaptation of the legendary video game. Peter Jackson was producing. Studios had committed millions. Then the entire project collapsed. Creative differences, budget disputes. The plug was pulled. Blomkamp was left adrift, an unknown director with nothing to show. Jackson, impressed by his vision, gave him a challenge. Make whatever you want with a fraction of the budget. Blomkamp returned to his short film Alive in Joburg and expanded it into District 9. With a cast of mostly unknowns, filmed documentary style in Johannesburg, District 9 was gritty, raw, and angry. Its mix of sci-fi, apartheid allegory, and body horror was like nothing else. Studios were skeptical. It had no stars, no IP, no clean genre. But when it hit theaters, it detonated. Audiences were shocked. Critics praised its originality. The film earned 4 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. Blomkamp became a visionary overnight. The twist? District 9 only exists because Halo failed. One studio's disaster became another's triumph. Fact 13. Dread 2012. A reboot that was dead on arrival until fans revived it. The 1995 Judge Dredd film, starring Sylvester Stallone, was a disaster. Campy, overacted, and universally mocked. So when Dredd was announced in 2012, no one cared. Not studios, not critics, not even longtime fans. Carl Urban signed on with a rule. He would never remove the helmet, a nod to the comic's core identity. Screenwriter Alex Garland took creative control. The tone? Bleak, violent, stylized, no quips, no stars. Filmed on a modest $45 million budget, Dredd was distributed with little fanfare. Marketing was nearly non-existent. It opened in 3D during a packed box office season and quietly vanished. But then the home release hit, and everything changed. The slow-motion drug sequences, the concrete brutality, Urban's stoic performance, it all clicked. Fans rallied. Petitions for a sequel grew. The film earned cult status years after release. Ironically, Dredd failed at the box office but succeeded where it mattered most: influence. It proved that comic book movies could be faithful, uncompromising, and self-contained. And the sequel? Still unreleased. Because some legends don't get the follow-up they deserve. Fact 14. Hardcore Henry 2015. The action film that played like a first-person shooter. No one had seen anything like it. A full-length action movie, shot entirely in first-person point of view. Like watching a video game, but you're inside the chaos. Russian director Ilya Naishuller used GoPro cameras strapped to stunt actors. The film had no traditional lead actor, only hands, feet, fists. The protagonist never speaks. The camera is the character. Studios passed. They said it was nauseating, confusing, unwatchable. Naishuller crowdfunded the film, stitched together the money, and shot it guerrilla style through Moscow. Explosions, chases, rooftops, gunfights, all real, all immersive. Then Hardcore Henry premiered at Toronto. The audience went wild or ran for the exits. Motion sickness, cheers, fainting, rave reviews, harsh critiques. It was chaos. Just like the film, STX picked up the rights. It was released in 2016 to mixed results. Some saw it as a gimmick. Others called it revolutionary. It didn't make much money, but it changed the language of action cinematography. Since then, dozens of sequences from Extraction to John Wick borrow its style. The irony? It looked like a cheap trick, but it punched a hole through the fourth wall and never looked back. Fact 15. Equilibrium 2002. The film that was buried by a studio afraid of its own product. Equilibrium was marketed like a cheap Matrix knockoff. Gun kata, Christian Bale in a dystopia, black leather, audiences rolled their eyes. But that was never the real story. Director Kurt Wimmer envisioned a world without emotion, where art is banned and sense offenders are executed. The film mixed Orwellian dread with balletic violence. Bale plays a cleric turned rebel. The action is stylized, poetic, surgical. Shot on a tiny $20 million budget in Berlin, Equilibrium had no major studio backing. It was delayed, recut, and quietly dumped into limited release without press. The US distributor barely screened it, but on DVD, it grew. Whispers on forums, midnight screenings, clip compilations on early YouTube. Fans discovered not just brutal action, but a haunting, emotional undercurrent. Bale's performance, the poetry of the final duel, the sheer atmosphere. Equilibrium became a cult phenomenon, and yet it was buried before it could breathe. A film about suppressing emotion became beloved by those who felt too much. Bonus fact: The Man Who Stopped Filming Because of Ghosts. This one didn't make the top 15, but it might just be the strangest of all. In 1997, acclaimed Hong Kong director Ronnie Yu, fresh off Bride with White Hair, was tapped to helm an international martial arts epic, Phantom Blade. The production was ambitious, shooting in rural China, with a cast that included Chow Yun-fat and rising newcomer Daniel Wu. But strange things began happening on set. Crew members reported voices echoing in empty forests. A stunt coordinator was found unconscious. No injury, no explanation. One camera assistant quit after reviewing footage and claiming to see a face where there should be none. Yu, known for his superstition, halted filming multiple times. He brought in a local Taoist priest to cleanse the set, but the incidents escalated. During a key wire stunt, a rig malfunctioned mid-air, resulting in a near-fatal fall. That night, the production was shut down indefinitely. The insurance report cites equipment instability, but insiders say the real reason was simple. Ronnie Yu believed the set was haunted. The footage was never completed. What exists has never been shown publicly. The film was abandoned, left to rot in reels somewhere in Hong Kong. No one talks about Phantom Blade anymore, and yet those who were there refuse to forget. A film not destroyed by budget or box office, but by something far older and far colder. Some of these films were nearly erased before they began. Others clawed their way into the world fueled by vision, luck, or sheer defiance. But now we want to know, which one shocked you the most? Was it the film that rewrote a genre, or the one that never made it to theaters? Do you believe a movie can be cursed? Or are these just stories of risk, failure, and unexpected triumph? Tell us below, which action film should have failed but didn't?